labubu on your lap, like having a labubu dangling off of your.
I've been in LA for like 24 hours at this point, and I've not seen a single labubu, so I'm actually not convinced that is a trend yet.
Labubu. There's a lot of people fantasizing about me participating in the Nuremberg trials. It'd be great. I like live reacting to the Nuremberg trials. That'd be so sick, honestly. It's just me in 2030 tuning into the new Nuremberg trials on Twitch, hosted by Hassan Piker. Like that's too much. That's too much as far as like Hope Core goes. We're manifesting this. Who's your fave to see it tried in Nuremberg? Who do you think would be the best?
Well, the GOAT is like the LeBron of that is Netanyahu.
He's
the obvious.
Not the obvious ones. I'm saying like someone who you're like, that'd be kind of funny if like in the actual OG Nuremberg trials, there was just a dude who hated his neighbor and he was like, this guy is the king.
Yeah, he hated the Jews and everything. Yeah. But like he just kept taking my trash cans. They're my trash cans.
Yeah.
They're not his, and he kept moving them, and that's why he should be hung next to all these other guys.
A lot of people are saying Barry Weiss. I think that's a good one. Yeah, for sure.
Barry Weiss would be an interesting one.
Danny Danon
for sure.
Yeah.
I think
was it Drew Pavlov? I think Drew Pavlov is so stupid that he's just like, that's like a
he's on his Loomer shit now. Have you seen this?
Yeah, that's a problem that's like fixing itself, I think.
Yeah,
he's like, I think he's going to jail or something because he was he's the first guy to get arrested and like prosecuted for being annoying, I think. Because like the shit that he advocates for is the things that the Australian government already agree on. It's like being pro-Israel, being extremely and viciously anti-China.
And like crazily censorious against anybody who's pro-Palestine. No, it's like, nuts.
Like how are your vibes so f***ed that the very same administration that is under every other circumstance like supposed to be on board with what you're doing literally still prosecuting you?
I think it's as simple as like, if you're really about that clout game like too much and like you let it show and you let your naked desire to be like he just wants to be the most successful. He wants to be a really big success and all these other things, and instead it's just like you can smell the desperation through the computer screen thousands of miles away.
Yeah, he protested on private ground, didn't leave after told to, fined $1,000, tried to get it away on other courts, and in the end it accumulated to $23,000 that he doesn't want to pay, so he's going to jail by his own will.
All right, see, this is skill issue. Imagine being like a crazy pro-Israel NATO guy and like doing this like bull self-sacrifice thing, and you can't even find a rich guy to bail you out.
Yeah, well,
like somebody who pulls in that kind of money in a half hour.
Sorry, it's just like such a fucking L if you're like going to jail for being too pro-Israel in any of these like Western aligned nations. You literally are. Your vibes are so fucked. You are just such a goddamn loser that even the governments that are very much on board with whatever the fuck you're advocating for are just going, we're gonna throw you in jail because you're just so annoying. I mean, he's basically like what's his face, Rabbi Shmuley, in the sense that like his very appearance and like the things that he says are so stupid and so insane that like it actually invokes a negative response from allies, where they're like, dude, maybe it's better if you don't say.
But this goes back to that this goes back to the level of vibes, though. I have a really funny, I mean, I have a few different Rabbi Shmuley stories. The funniest Rabbi Shmuley story was that like, because he used to dine out so much on his like old friendship with Cory Booker, he would like write op-eds for like the Times of Israel or whatever. And a guy, Dylan Williams, he's like a lefty-ish like policy guy in DC. We used to work for J Street, now works for somewhere else. But he like took the first word of one of Shmuley's columns, and like the first word in each paragraph or sentence, it was just I, me, Cory, Holocaust, I, me, like whatever.
Yeah.
And then the other was like 8 years ago, I covered an APAC conference, and they had the main APAC conference at like the Washington Convention Center, the big place, you know, et cetera. And then across the street, there's this synagogue, 6th Street and I, and at the 6th and I synagogue in the basement, is where they had all the settlers. Like it's where and the right wingers who in 2017 were considered like too out there to be given like real main stage FaceTime at the APAC conference. And then once that was done and I was like, all right, I need to leave or else I'm going to go insane. I get outside and the first thing that I see is there's a line of people trying to get into this building because evidently they all want to go to the settler party or whatever. But the first person who's like trying to get his way in and not succeeding, from what I can tell, was Rabbi Shmuley.
I love that.
He wasn't like Blood thought he was on the team, and he wasn't.
Yeah, I mean, who the wants that guy at their party? If your job is to just like propagandize at the behest of the apartheid state, and you're just so repulsive. Like the things you're saying are so repulsive.
Well, but you got to remember, dog. He was a reality TV show star. You know that, right?
Wait, what? What was the reality?
Shalom in the Home.
Is that
Google?
what?
But look this up. Come on, dog. That's how. That's why anybody pays attention to him, is because he branded himself America's rabbi. Because he was the first person to leverage being a rabbi into being on the most important American cultural export, reality television.
Is Shalom in the Home, bro? Reality TV 2 seasons. Shalom in the Home is a belief that our homes is peaceful. Wait, what the is an American reality television series that aired on TLC. First of all, if you have only 2 seasons on TLC, you're ass. Okay? Because like TLC will have the Learning Channel, by the way. They'll run anything for like at least 7 seasons. Yeah. How did you get canceled after 2 seasons on the TLC, man? On the Learning Channel? That's crazy. Okay, we have to watch this, bro. This is on the docket now.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Approval of congressional Democrats is down to a historic low of just 19%. Crazy.
19 is it's getting lower to 0, and 0 is the lower bound of approval rating. So that's a lot of room to go up. That's all I'm saying.
They can they can pump these numbers higher. I think we can get to a historic 0% approval rating, 100% net disapproval rating, like minus 100. And I think we are slated to get there. We are looking to get there. It can happen.
There is a truth to the idea that, like, all right, if the Democrats become this hated, that makes it that much like it makes insurgents in the party like that much stronger. Like people who credibly claim an opposition, people who credibly claim that they are on the other side of the establishment. The shorthand of what I'm saying is that the easiest way to like boost your favorables as a candidate or to make yourself like a particularly viable political figure in pretty much any context now is to just get in front of a camera and say F Chuck Schumer. That's like being only a little bit glib here, but it is more or less true. That's what that 19% means. It's not that 19% of people only 19% of people think that like taxes should be higher or something.
I think even the galvanizing force that's supposed to be there, like the populist leftist momentum that's supposed to be there from the likes of AOC, needs to keep spiking the football, and hopefully we can see how unpopular the party can get. I have no more confidence in the future of America, so I'm just entertaining myself, I guess. Let's see, friend of the show, Christian Devine
I'm New York Times op-ed author Brett Stevens, and I recently wrote the piece, No, Israel is not committing a genocide in Gaza, and I've gotten some backlash to it, and I'd like to kind of respond. Of course, I try to be fair and balanced in my opinion pieces, and so when I hear news of Palestinians coming out of Gaza, I like to take my fingers, put them in my ears, and go, la, 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 la. That way, I don't absorb any of the bias. So in my article, I wrote that Israel isn't committing a genocide because they've only killed, by some estimates, 60,000 people. And they could have killed a lot more. I mean, if you were going to kill people, you could kill more.
True.
That's why it's not a genocide. Doesn't that make sense? I mean, if it was really a genocide, they would have to kill everybody. The UN's definition of genocide also includes intent. And they didn't say they were trying to. They just did on accident. And that kind of just happens. So to me, your arguments don't make sense unless they kill everyone and they said they were trying to.
Yeah.
Also,
which, by the way, by those estimations, the Holocaust is also not a genocide.
I mean, one of the things I despise the most about like the current state of the discourse is that everybody pretending, just because genocide is a contested term, that because there is some measure of contesting what it can mean, that it actually just means that it's not actually a concept. That what is a concept? What is?
Everyone turns into Jordan Peterson when
What
they want
is-
to
what
want to
is-
talk about genocide.
when-
What is?
What is when Miss Piggy doesn't let me leave the house?
Yeah,
Is that genocide?
it's just like
Is that genocide?
it's so morally bankrupt, especially at this point. I don't know. I think everyone is just basically relying on the fact that because America is the great evil and they are not even remotely interested in allowing any sort of justice to take place here, that they feel confident that they can just like get away with saying whatever the they want. They're speaking like they will never get tried in Nuremberg. Okay, even though we're living in the post-Nuremberg universe, there has been successful genocide designations in international courts of law for much smaller numbers of people at this point. It's ridiculous. And there are plenty of things that even America has done that would be considered genocide or genocidal or whatever you want to call it. But because it's America doing it, it's different. But in this circumstance, it's not even America doing it, it's Israel doing it. So obviously there's a different reaction to that sort of thing because it's not the global hegemon. Obviously, morally speaking, the Korean War, I think, is a genocide. Clearly evil.
In season 3, we interviewed Bruce Cummings, who is like in America, like the greatest living scholar of Korean history, and probably in America, the greatest living or deceased scholar of Korean history. And when we asked him straight up, was it a genocide? He said yes. There was a goal, which was essentially to like thin and demolish the civilian population as much as possible to eradicate that. I mean, it was a continuation of a lot of tactics that were used against like a more approved enemy in the end of World War II with like our total destruction bombing campaigns in Japan. But there's, continuity to then having us apply that in a Cold War context against fucking like, starving Chinese volunteer soldiers and like Koreans who just happened to be on the wrong side of the parallel, which by the way, also like it was a genocide that it is fair to say extended below the parallel as well, because it's not like the parallel was itself such a neat dividing
Jeju
line
Island
in that war.
And numerous other massacres
Exactly,
that like
exactly.
the American military-backed like South Korean puppet state committed. There were numerous atrocities, some of which they still shelter the Truth and Republic on.
I mean, at the time of the Korean War, when there were very credible evidence-based allegations that the United States was using germ and biological warfare, the Soviet bloc and the Asian communist states put together a commission called the ISC that was led by one of the most famous biologists in the world at the time, Joseph Needham, to do more or less this. And that's not Truth and Reconciliation. I mean, that was an investigation into specific atrocities, but like, that was rejected out of hand and ridiculed in the Western press totally. And so the idea that there was going to be some kind of process where we were going to like seriously evaluate all the atrocities that like we ourselves committed on an even grander scale than, repurposing, than using biological and germ warfare is... it's just hard to fathom. I mean, we don't do that. We make movies. It's about like the air war of the Korean War that at like no real point kind of addresses like, well, what was the on the ground reality of the destruction caused by that air war?
Yeah, but they're not humans. They were, I do want to talk about this right now because it corresponds to like one of the news stories of today, which is Israel's putting a pause on the famine. I guess they're like letting in aid, and even then they're letting in aid mostly through airdrops, which is again dangerous, and it's already killing Palestinians.
It's dangerous theater. It kills as many people as it feeds, it feels like.
Because there's been so much like radio silence on this issue, despite the severity of the crisis, it feels like there's a change of attitude here, but when I think about it, it's no different than when people were like, Mr. Netanyahu, please stop during the first Biden term. These guys, I think, are just like, this is just the modus operandi, where you just kind of, when it gets to a point where it's undeniable, unavoidable, unimaginable cruelty, you just turn around and you're like, oh, we're going to recognize the state of Palestine with like all of these different ridiculous qualifiers as well that correspond to Israel's goals of dominance regardless. And then that's it. They turn around and they offer a little bit of aid in and then they go back to the ethnic slaughter.
I mean, I also, there's no like sense of like, well, what about, I mean, is like tomorrow, like speaking figuratively. I mean, just like at any point in the future, like the place is uninhabitable. Like the aid thing is the crisis du jour. It is the crisis of the moment, and it's a fucking awful one. But like the reality is that like groundwater supply is poisoned. All of the roads unusable. No habitating structures. The like who knows all the asbestos and other shit that's been like, you know, released into the environment. All of the fishing and all of the ocean, you know, like the waters are polluted. I mean, it's really more can kicking from people who have only been kicking the can since October 2023. They would rather kick the can, by the way, and they would rather like blame the people who get mad at them in their Twitter mentions than admit for even a goddamn second, for a single second, I was wrong.
For me, I'm going to say something extreme here. If someone like Matty Iglesias overnight was like, this is unconscionable, this is a genocide, I was, you know, even if he didn't say he was wrong, and then he just kept it pushing and didn't respond to people who were like, dude, what the fuck? I can see your tweets from yesterday when you were saying it's awesome and good and we should starve more children. And he never responded to those guys at all. And he just almost magically overnight turned into the advocate. I obviously would not trust them, but I also wouldn't spend any time fucking shitting on them. Okay. Like I'd be like, all right, who cares? Just keep it pushing. You know, the Owen Jones method, you say. Yeah, exactly. At this point, like maybe I'm too pragmatic. And some people might get mad at that, but don't care what people have said in the past. I just want this to come to an end. And I realize that, like, I mean, the media figures and politicians, but like, especially for the average people, regardless of their lack of interest in saying anything until it was like no longer damaging to their careers or whatever, I want enough pressure to mount so that the situation changes. And this, on the other hand, is not an example of this because like, this is a cynical attempt.
Exactly.
This is a cynical attempt from Ross Douthat, who does not actually think that the war is unjust. It's just the title of it. Israel's war in Gaza is not a genocide. It's a war for a just cause. The elimination of a cruel, fanatical, itself potentially genocidal terrorist organization that oppresses its own people, holds innocent hostages, and will pose a severe danger to the state of Israel for so long as it holds power. It's a failure. In some ways, it's no different than Benjamin Netanyahu thinking he can go on the Nelk Boys podcast and then like somehow get some benefits out of that to like restore Israel's image in like a specific demographic. It's an abject failure. These guys are basically eroding what remains of their already limited credibility. Every single time they just like scream into the void about how everyone else is wrong and you have to listen to us. To varying degrees, they're still trying to maintain some semblance of credibility as well. Like they have to do that. Otherwise, next time they write an article, no one's going to trust them because they're going to be like, oh, remember when you said this wasn't a genocide?
I mean, look, if I had one thought to express in like a real deep way, it's that like I really wish that the people working at the New York Times who have a union, you know, the News Guild, and who have like really for many years resisted letting the union have any input on editorial matters or express their thoughts. I wish to God that some of them tried to, you know, collectively organize and express dissatisfaction with when their paper, you know, does things like let its news coverage become this like instrument of Israeli policy abroad.
This is from 5 hours ago.
In the last hour, the Israeli military has announced a pause in fighting in 3 areas for humanitarian purposes. The IDF says starting today, between 10 a.m. and 8 p.m. local time, there will be a pause in military activity in Al-Mawasi, Deir al-Balah and Gaza City every day until further notice. It is to allow the safe passage of United Nations and humanitarian aid organization convoys. Now, Egyptian TV has shown these pictures of aid trucks lining up at the border before moving off, driving towards the Gaza Strip. The Israeli move, which includes opening so-called humanitarian corridors, comes after mounting international pressure and warnings of mass starvation of Palestinians in the territory.
Wait, can Israel just unilaterally stop fighting in an area without ceasefire? Yes, of course they can, because they are the perpetrators.
And they, by the way, the unilateral thing is kind of like it's like Israel can do it unilaterally because they have the power to do it. But like when they do it unilaterally, it's also not something that can be that stable or last for a long time because like Hamas is not like if you're not negotiating with the other side or if you're not agreeing on like a shared understanding of what it is, then like you can say that you stopped doing something, but how the fuck can anybody like verify that what you're doing is actually like a cessation of activity? I mean, like Israel announced they're lifting like a curfew or whatever it was about like in areas where they are not operating currently, which is like, you know, weasel words. Like they still allow themselves, even in this unilateral action, like enormous latitude to do whatever they want when they want it. That's the benefit of doing it unilaterally, is that you don't have to abide by any demand that, you know, somebody else made of you. You just do what you think is in your best interest at that moment. And clearly Israel has decided that getting screamed at by the entire world for a week or two on end, because now everybody realizes the starvation is real. You know, like they've decided like, all right, we can lay down the arms for a bit.
Yeah, we can let in like a crumb of aid beyond the intentional death traps that we've set up, because people have seen too many starving dead children, like too many starving dead babies. So we just have to move on a little bit. It's gross. It's a gross calculation, but don't take my word for it. Let's hear what, where is it? Benjamin Netanyahu himself openly state this. Where is it? Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, speaking in Hebrew, and that's how you know this is for the Israeli public consumption and not the Western world, is explaining how he is now being forced to allow minimal humanitarian aid in Gaza. Let it be clear that we will achieve our goal and destroy Hamas, he said. Let's take a look. I'm in Mitzpe Ramon after visiting the Ramon Air Force Base, where I thanked the Air Force commander and the wonderful air and ground crews for the wonderful announcement they made. In Operation HasanAbi, we continue to fight in the Gaza Strip first and foremost. We have casualties. We also have wounded. I send condolences to the families and may the injured recover. But let it be clear, we will achieve the goal. We will eliminate Hamas. To complete this goal, both of eliminating Hamas and of freeing our hostages, we are advancing in the fighting and conducting a campaign of waiting. In any path we
sorry, that was that timing.
We're conducting a campaign of waiting. In any path we choose, in any path, we will have to continue to allow the entry of minimal humanitarian supplies. We have done this until now, but the UN is making excuses and lying, saying I'm not allowed to enter with humanitarian supplies. Granted, there are open labors, there always have been, but today it's official. There will be no more excuses. We will continue to fight, and we will continue to act until we achieve all of our war goals.
Yeah,
until we complete victory.
He's speaking to his right flank here, because like Netanyahu's job, the reason Netanyahu is in power is both because he's a devious motherfucker, but he's also like he represents a compromise between like the two prevailing like political factions in Israel, who don't neatly correspond to specific parties or even like left or right at this point anymore, just because of how devolved and degraded the state of Israeli society is. But it's about like the people on the religious right and the settler establishment who clearly have like, they want to go balls to the wall with like everything everywhere all the time, whether it's the West Bank destruction and displacement, which continues apace, or it's the complete eradication of all life in Gaza. Take your pick.